The grand chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with the usual pre-meeting chatter. Representatives from dozens of species filled their assigned seats, adjusting their translation devices and reviewing their notes. But something was different today. The human section sat completely empty. Ambassador Trelvax of the Korthan Empire noticed it first. He leaned toward his aide and whispered, "Where are the humans?" His aide checked her datapad and frowned. "Sir, we received a message this morning. The humans have withdrawn from the council. Effective immediately." Trelvax's four eyes widened. "Withdrawn? What do you mean withdrawn?" "They closed all their embassies, recalled all their staff. They sent a formal notice but gave no explanation. They're just ... The news spread quickly through the chamber. At first, many representatives seemed pleased. The Vryn delegate actually smiled, his scales glittering under the lights. "Finally," he said loudly enough for others to hear, "those troublemakers are gone. Always questioning our decisions, always breaking protocol." Council Speaker Morvath called the session to order. She was a tall, elegant being from the Deltharian sphere. "We have received notification of humanity's withdrawal. While unusual, it is their right. We shall proceed without them." Many members nodded in agreement. The humans had always been difficult. They shared technology with primitive worlds without permission. They questioned ancient traditions. They moved too fast, changed too much, and never followed the proper order of things. Perhaps their leaving would bring stability. The session began normally. Trade agreements were discussed. Border disputes were mediated. Everything seemed fine. Then, halfway through the meeting, every holographic display in the chamber flickered and died. "Technical difficulty," Morvath announced calmly. "We'll have it fixed momentarily." But it wasn't fixed. Communication officers rushed into the chamber with urgent reports. The quantum relay network had gone offline. All of it. 70% of council communications ran through that network. "Contact the maintenance teams," Morvath ordered. "That's the problem, Speaker," a technician said nervously. "The humans built and maintained the entire network. We don't know how to access it. It's encrypted, and the passwords changed when they left." A cold silence fell over the chamber. Morvath cleared her throat. "Surely we have our own technicians who understand the system?" The technician shook his head. "The humans offered training programs for years. No one ever took them. They maintained everything for free, so we never thought—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The meeting continued, but the mood had shifted. Representatives began receiving urgent messages from their homeworlds, all on emergency channels. Since regular communications were down, the Korthan military reported that pirates had attacked 3 trade convoys in the outer reaches. Normally, human patrol ships responded within hours. Now there was no response at all. The Korthans sent their own fleet, but without human jump drive calibrators. What should have been a 3-hour journey would take 2 days. The Vryn received worse news. A cargo vessel carrying medical supplies had broken down in deep space. The crew was dying. They needed a rescue ship equipped with human-designed life support systems. But all the humans were gone, and no one else knew how to operate the complex equipment. By the end of the day, the council chamber was nearly empty. Every representative had rushed back to their homeworld to deal with emerging crises. Trelvax sat alone in the Korthan section, staring at the empty human seats. His aide approached quietly. "Sir, we're getting more reports. Food synthesizers in the colony worlds are failing. They all use human-designed molecular assemblers. Our people don't know how to fix them." Trelvax rubbed his forehead with 2 of his 4 hands. "How did we let this happen, sir? How did we become so dependent on them without even realizing it?" The aide had no answer. Across council space, the pattern repeated. Hospitals discovered that 40% of their medical equipment was human-made or human-modified. Water purification plants on desert worlds used human filtration technology. Agricultural systems relied on human genetic optimization algorithms. Power grids used human-designed efficiency boosters. For decades, humans had freely shared their innovations. They had asked nothing in return except cooperation and friendship. The council had accepted these gifts without thought, never questioning what would happen if the gifts stopped coming on the planet Vryn Prime. Doctors watched helplessly as cancer patients who had been in remission suddenly worsened. The human-designed nanomedicine in their bodies had deactivated. No one knew how to reactivate it. On Deltharian stations, engineers stared at dark screens that controlled life support for millions. The systems were human-coded, human-maintained, and now completely locked on Corthan border worlds. Colonists looked nervously at the sky. For generations, they had lived safely, knowing human defense satellites watched for threats. Those satellites were still there, but they had gone completely silent. 3 weeks after humanity's withdrawal, the council convened an emergency session. This time, everyone attended. The mood was very different from the last meeting. "We need to bring them back," the Vryn delegate said. Gone was his earlier smugness. "Send diplomats. Offer them whatever they want." "We've tried," Morvith replied tiredly. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Every message we send into human space goes unanswered. It's like they've vanished completely." "Then we need to access their technology ourselves," another delegate suggested. "Surely we can crack their encryptions, reverse engineer their systems." A Deltharian scientist stood up. He was one of the council's top researchers. "Speaker, I've been examining the human relay network. Their encryption is... I've never seen anything like it. It's not just advanced. It's based on mathematical principles we don't fully understand. It could take us centuries to break." "Centuries?" Morvath's voice cracked. "We don't have centuries. People are dying now." The scientist nodded sadly. "I know. But there's something else. I've been reviewing records of human technology transfers. Every time they shared something with us, they also offered detailed documentation and training programs. We have warehouses full of human educational materials that no one ever bothered to read." The chamber fell silent. "Why would we?" the Vryn delegate said quietly. "They were always there to fix things, to solve problems, to make everything work." He paused. "We stopped learning because they made it so easy not to." Trelvax stood up, his voice heavy. "I've received reports from our border regions. The Devourers are moving. Without human battle groups patrolling the frontier, they're testing our defenses. How soon can we mobilize?" Morvith asked. "Our fleets are ready, but Speaker, for the last 30 years, we've been upgrading our ships with human technology. Our tactics are based on human strategic analysis. Our weapons use human targeting systems. Without that support..." He didn't finish. Everyone understood. The mighty council fleets, which had kept the peace for generations, were built on a foundation of human innovation. A foundation that had just crumbled beneath them. In the empty human section of the chamber, the seats gathered dust. On Earth and the other human worlds, cities sat quiet. Ships remained docked. The humans had simply turned away, closing their doors without anger or explanation. They had left the council to face the consequences of its own complacency, and those consequences were only just beginning. 3 weeks had passed since humanity vanished from council space. What started as an inconvenience had become a disaster. Captain Genitar of the Corthan Defense Fleet stared at his tactical display in frustration. His mission was simple: protect a trade convoy from pirates in the outer reaches. A routine assignment that should have taken hours. Instead, they had been traveling for 3 days. "Navigation, why are we still not there?" he demanded. His navigation officer looked exhausted. "Sir, without the human jump drive calibrators, we have to use the old systems. They're slower and less accurate. We've had to recalculate our route 4 times. Unacceptable. Those pirates will be long gone by the time we arrive." "I know, sir. But this is the best we can do." Genitar slumped in his command chair. He remembered when humans patrolled these routes. Pirates rarely attacked because human response was so fast. Now, the pirates knew. They were getting bolder. When his fleet finally arrived at the last reported position of the convoy, they found debris. The merchant ships had been destroyed. There were no survivors. Genitar filed his report with a heavy heart. It was the fifth convoy lost that week. Meanwhile, on the medical station orbiting Vryn Prime, Dr. Socketh faced a different crisis. She stood in a sterile room filled with patients in stasis pods. Each pod displayed a red warning light. How many? She asked her assistant. 217 patients across the station, all in the middle of organ regeneration treatments. Dr. Socketh approached one pod. Inside was a young Vryn child, barely 10 years old. She had been growing a new heart. The process was 70% complete. Now it had stopped. The regeneration chambers are human-designed, the assistant explained. We can keep the patients in stasis, but we can't continue the treatments. And we can't keep them in stasis forever. Can we transfer them to non-human equipment? We don't have non-human equipment that does this. Organ regeneration at this level is human technology. We never developed our own version because theirs works so well. Dr. Socketh looked at the sleeping child. Contact every research institution in Council space. Someone must know how these machines work. But no one did. The humans had offered training courses on the equipment. They had provided detailed technical manuals. But doctors like Socketh had been too busy, always assuming they could ask a human colleague if something went wrong. The human colleagues were gone now. Across the station, similar scenes played out. Cancer treatments halted. Neural repair procedures stopped mid-process. Genetic therapies became impossible to continue. The humans hadn't sabotaged anything. They had simply taken their knowledge with them on the Council Prime. Ambassador Trelvax met with the heads of the major research institutions. The meeting did not go well. Explain to me, Trelvax said, his voice dangerously calm, how the greatest scientific minds in Council space cannot operate equipment we've been using for decades. Professor Melnix of the Vryn Science Academy shifted uncomfortably. Ambassador, you must understand. Human innovation advanced so rapidly that it became impossible to keep up. Every time we started to research something, they would share a solution that was years ahead of our work. Eventually, we redirected our resources to other areas. What other areas? Theoretical studies? Historical analysis? Philosophy? Trelvax's voice rose. People are dying and our scientists were studying philosophy? We thought the humans would always be there, another scientist said quietly. They never asked for anything. They never demanded payment. They just Dave, it seemed foolish to duplicate their efforts. Trelvax wanted to scream. Instead, he dismissed them and turned to his military advisors. The news from the frontier was worse. Fleet Commander Dralseth reported that the Devourers had launched 3 major incursions in the past week. They're testing our defenses? Dralseth explained. They know the humans are gone. For 40 years, human battle groups kept them contained. Now they're probing deeper into our territory. Send reinforcements, Trelvax ordered. We have, sir. But there's a problem. Our ships use human tactical systems. Our targeting computers are based on human algorithms. Our communication protocols were designed by human engineers. We're trying to fight with equipment we don't fully understand. Have we won any engagements? Dralseth hesitated. We drove them back from the Kelver system, but we lost 6 ships doing it. In the past, human forces would have repelled such an attack with minimal casualties. We're fighting at a fraction of our previous effectiveness. The pattern was clear. The Council military hadn't just used human technology. They had built their entire modern doctrine around it. Without that foundation, they were reverting to tactics from a century ago. On Deltharian worlds, the food crisis deepened. Massive vertical farms that fed billions relied on human-designed systems. The plants still grew, but yield optimization algorithms had stopped working. Harvests were down 40%. Food reserves were being depleted faster than they could be replenished. Governor Thelenas of Deltharia III stood in an empty grain storage facility. It should have been full at this time of year. Instead, he saw bare walls. How long before we have to ration food? He asked his agricultural minister. We're already rationing, Governor, quietly. If people realize how bad it is, there will be panic. How did we miss this? The minister pulled up a holographic display. Look at this production chart. 20 years ago, our farms produced 60 million tons of grain annually. Today, with human optimization, we were producing 180 million tons from the same amount of land. Same farms, same farmers, triple the output, and now? Now we're back to 60 million tons. But our population has grown. We have twice as many mouths to feed? Thalonos closed his eyes. Contact the grain merchants in the Korthan Empire. See if they can sell us emergency supplies? Sir, the Korthans are having the same problems. Everyone is. Across council space, the systems were failing. Not because of attacks or sabotage, but simply because the humans were no longer there to maintain what they had built. Financial markets crashed. Human-designed trading algorithms had processed millions of transactions per second. Without them, exchanges reverted to manual systems that could barely handle thousands. The galactic economy ground to a halt. Transportation networks collapsed. Human logistics software had coordinated cargo movements across thousands of star systems. Without it, ships sat in ports waiting for routing instructions that never came. Education systems struggled. 40% of all teaching materials used in council schools have been created by humans or used human-developed educational technology. Teachers suddenly had to teach without the tools they had relied on for decades. In the council chamber, Speaker Morveth reviewed the damage reports. They covered her entire desk and spilled onto the floor. Every sector of council society was affected. Every world reported problems. Her assistant entered quietly. Speaker, you asked for historical data on council technology development. Yes, what did you find? Speaker, in the 50 years before humanity joined the council, we made significant advances in all fields. Medical technology improved by 18%. Industrial efficiency increased by 12%. Military capabilities grew steadily, and after humanity joined? The assistant pulled up a chart. Progress accelerated dramatically. Medical technology improved by over 300%. Industrial efficiency doubled. Military effectiveness increased by a factor of 5, but what? But almost all of that progress was human innovation. Our own research and development practically stopped. We were advancing, but only because we were adopting human solutions. We weren't creating anything new ourselves. Morveth stared at the chart. The truth was undeniable. Humanity had carried the council for half a century. They had made everyone's lives better, safer, more comfortable, and the council had responded by becoming completely dependent on them. We need to send another delegation to human space, she said finally. We've sent 12, Speaker. None have been acknowledged. Then send a 13th. We must make contact. We must convince them to return. But even as she gave the order, Morveth knew it was futile. The humans had left quietly, without anger or demands. That somehow made it worse. They hadn't stormed out in rage. They had simply decided the council wasn't worth their time anymore, and looking at the damage reports covering her desk, Morveth was beginning to understand why the cracks in council civilization were showing. Soon, they would become chasms, and there would be no humans to help bridge them. 6 months had passed since humanity's withdrawal. The council was bleeding from 1,000 wounds, but its pride remained intact. Or perhaps it was desperation masquerading as pride. The emergency assembly hall was packed. Every council member had come in person. No holographic attendance this time. The quantum relay network was still dead, and no one had figured out how to restore it. Fleet Admiral Krath of the Vryn hegemony stood at the central podium. He was a massive being covered in red scales that gleamed under the lights. Behind him, a holographic display showed the Vryn military fleet 300 warships, the second largest navy in the galaxy. Members of the council, Krath began, his voice booming, we have spent 6 months begging. 6 months sending messages that go unanswered. 6 months watching our civilization crumble. I say enough is enough. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The humans have technology that belongs to all council members. Technology they developed while part of our alliance. They have no right to take it away and watch us suffer. Speaker Morvith raised a hand. Admiral, the technology was always theirs. They shared it freely, but they never transferred ownership. A technicality. Kraft slammed his fist on the podium. They built infrastructure throughout Council space. They integrated their systems into our worlds. They made themselves essential, and now they abandon us. This is not just selfish, it is cruel. Ambassador Trelvax stood up from the Corthan section. What exactly are you proposing, Admiral? Croft smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. I propose we stop asking and start taking. My fleet will enter human space. We will go to their research facilities, their manufacturing plants, their data centers. We will acquire the information we need to operate and maintain the systems they left behind. You mean steal it? Trelvax said flatly. I mean reclaim what should never have been withheld from us. The humans always preached about sharing and cooperation. Now we'll see if they practice what they preach. The Daltharian representative stood. This is madness. You're talking about invading human territory. That's an act of war. Kraft laughed. War against the humans? They never once responded to any provocation with violence. They are pacifists. They will file diplomatic protests while we take what we need, and then they'll eventually come back to negotiate. That's how humans work. Speaker Morvith looked troubled. Admiral, I must advise against this course of action. With respect, Speaker, you're not in charge of the Vryn military. My government has already approved this mission? I'm merely informing the Council as a courtesy. Then you're informing us that you're about to make a terrible mistake, Trelvax said. Krath turned to face him. The only mistake was trusting the humans to be honorable. That mistake ends now. 3 days later, the Vryn fleet assembled at the border of human space. 300 warships representing decades of military development. Krath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's pride, feeling confident. All ships report ready, Admiral, his tactical officer announced. Then let's go collect what's ours. All ships jump into the Sol system on my mark. The fleet jumped. Space twisted as 300 ships emerged near Earth's sun. Krath expected to see human defense fleets scrambling to intercept them. Instead, he saw nothing. Sensors report, "Where are their ships?" "Admiral, I'm detecting minimal traffic. A few cargo vessels, some small transports. No military presence at all." Krath frowned. They must be hiding. Scan the inner planets. The sensor officer worked for several minutes. "Sir, I'm detecting something strange. Earth appears to be ... empty. I'm reading minimal life signs. Same with Mars, Venus Station, all the major population centers. It's like everyone's gone." "That's impossible. Earth has 12 billion humans. Not anymore, sir." Krath felt the first stirring of unease. He pushed it aside. "Doesn't matter. Head for the research facility on Europa. That's where they keep their quantum computing labs." The fleet moved toward Jupiter's moon. As they approached, Krath could see the massive facility complex on Europa's icy surface. The lights were still on. Power was flowing. But there were no ships, no people, no activity. A landing party confirmed what sensors showed. The facilities were empty. Not destroyed, not damaged, stripped clean. Every computer, every data storage device, every piece of equipment had been removed. The buildings were pristine shells with nothing inside. "Try the Mars facility," Krath ordered, his confidence wavering. Same result. Empty buildings. Active power systems with nothing to power. Earth? Empty. The lunar bases? Empty. "Admiral," his tactical officer said carefully, "I think we need to see this." The officer displayed a sensor reading from the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Krath stared at it, not understanding at first. Then the implications hit him like a physical blow. Is that a wormhole?" "Yes, sir, artificial, sustained, and massive. It's large enough to pass capital ships." "How long has it been there?" "Based on gravitational readings, approximately 7 months. right after they left the council. Krath's mind raced. A wormhole that size required incredible amounts of energy. The fact that humans could build and maintain it was terrifying. But more important was what it meant. "They're not hiding," he said quietly. "They're leaving. They're leaving the entire galaxy. Sir, I'm detecting something else. The wormhole is collapsing. It looks like a controlled shutdown." Krath watched as the massive gravitational anomaly shrank and vanished. The humans had closed their door behind them. They weren't in another star system. They were in another galaxy entirely. "Admiral, we have a problem," his engineering officer announced. "Ships across the fleet are reporting power fluctuations." "What kind of fluctuations?" "Multiple systems are failing. Navigation, life support, weapons, anything that was upgraded with human technology is going offline." Krath felt cold. "They're not attacking us. They're just, turning off their technology." "Yes, sir, remotely. Our systems are going dark." Within minutes, chaos erupted across the fleet. 200 of the 300 ships lost primary power. They drifted helplessly in space, running on emergency backup systems that were never designed to sustain a warship. The 100 ships that still had power were the older vessels, those that had never been upgraded with human systems. They scrambled to rescue crew members from the disabled ships. Krath's own flagship had gone dark. He sat in the dim emergency lighting, listening to damage reports flood in. "Sir, we've lost 7 ships." "Lost?" "To enemy fire?" "No, sir. Life support failed before we could evacuate the crew." Krath closed his eyes. 7 ships. Thousands of crew members. Dead because he had been too arrogant to listen. "Get us out of here," he ordered. "Everyone who can still move, retreat to the border." It took 3 weeks for the Vryn fleet to limp home. Of the 300 ships that had entered human space, only 97 returned under their own power. The rest had to be towed. The death toll was over 4,000. Krath submitted his resignation the day he returned. It was accepted immediately. The council convened to discuss what had happened. The mood was very different from 6 months ago. "They didn't fire a single shot," the Deltharian representative said. "They just deactivated their own technology." "Technology we had come to rely on," Trelvax added. "Technology we had integrated into our most critical systems without understanding how it worked." "And now they're gone," Morvis said. "Not to another system? To another galaxy. They're not coming back." The Vryn's new military commander stood. "Speaker, there's something else. Before our systems failed, we detected massive energy signatures through the wormhole. Thousands of ships. Not just human vessels, but designs we didn't recognize. The humans weren't alone in leaving. What does that mean?" "It means other species joined them. Species we've never encountered. The humans found something out there, other civilizations, perhaps, and they chose to go to them rather than stay with us." The implications hung heavy in the air. Humanity hadn't just left the council. They had found the council wanting and sought better company elsewhere. What do we do now? A junior delegate asked. No one had an answer outside the council chamber. Across known space, the situation continued to deteriorate. The Devourers pushed deeper into council territory. Trade routes collapsed. Economies crumbled. Governments fell, and somewhere beyond the reach of council telescopes, beyond the vast emptiness between galaxies, humanity built something new. Something the council would never see. They had learned a hard lesson. Sometimes the best way to help someone is to let them stand on their own, even if they fall first. Dr. Salkith stood in the observation deck of Medical Station 7, watching ships flee the planet below. Deltharia Prime, once home to 8 billion souls, was dying. A plague unlike anything the council had seen in centuries swept through the population. "How many evacuated so far?" she asked her assistant. 2 million. Maybe 3. The transport ships can't keep up. And the cure? Her assistant's silence was answer enough. The plague wasn't particularly deadly by historical standards. A century ago, it would have been contained within weeks using human-designed medical nanots. These microscopic machines could enter the bloodstream, identify pathogens, and eliminate them before symptoms even appeared, but the nanites required regular updates to recognize new diseases. Those updates came from human research stations that no longer existed. "We've tried recreating the nanites," her assistant said quietly. "Our best scientists have been working for months. But we don't understand the base programming. Every attempt fails." Dr. Socketh watched another transport ship lift off from the planet. "So few ships? So many people left behind." "We had the training materials," she said bitterly. "The humans gave us everything we needed to learn. We just never bothered to read it." The Deltharian government collapsed 3 weeks later. The plague killed 2 billion people before burning itself out. The survivors were scattered across a dozen refugee worlds. Their civilization in ruins. They were not alone in their suffering. The Korthan Empire, which had dominated the Eastern Spiral Arm for 1,000 years, fragmented like glass under a hammer. Emperor Viantal sat in his throne room, reading reports of rebellion. 15 provinces had declared independence in the last month alone. His governors were powerless to stop it. How? He demanded of his advisors. How does an empire that lasted a millennium fall apart in a single year? His chief administrator, an old Korthan named Relmok, pulled up a holographic map. "Sire, look at our territory. We control 200 systems across 30,000 light years. Do you know how we managed it? Superior organization? Better technology? Military might? No, sire, we managed it with human logistics algorithms. Look at this data stream: planetary resource management, supply chain coordination, communication networks, tax collection, law enforcement coordination. Every system that kept our empire functioning used human software. Then use it." "We can't, sire. It's locked. And even if we could access it, we don't understand how it works. The empire was too large to manage with our original systems. We expanded because human technology made expansion possible. Now that foundation is gone." Viantal stared at the map, watching provinces turn red as they declared independence. "So we're too big to manage without them?" "Yes, sire. We've been too big for decades. We just didn't realize it." The Korthan military tried to hold the empire together by force. It went poorly. The famous Korthan war machine discovered that decades of human upgrades had made them dependent on systems they couldn't maintain. General Thrakor led a fleet to suppress the rebellion in the outer reaches. His 100 ships jumped into the system expecting an easy victory against the rebels' 20 vessels. Instead, his fleet was crushed. What happened? Thrakor screamed as his flagship shook from weapons fire. "How are they beating us?" His tactical officer looked pale. "General, our targeting systems are malfunctioning. Our shields are operating at 60% efficiency. Even our communication systems are failing." "How is that possible?" "The rebels still have human technicians, General. They convinced several human civilians to stay when the rest left. Those technicians know how to maintain the systems properly." Thrakor watched 2 of his ships explode. "We're fighting with broken equipment against an enemy with working equipment?" "Yes, sir. And it's all the same equipment. They just know how to use it properly." The battle was a disaster. Thrakor lost 70 ships. The rebellion spread. Within 6 months, the Korthan Empire had splintered into 47 independent states. Some kept the old name out of pride. Others rejected it entirely. Civil wars erupted as various factions fought for territory and resources. The council tried to mediate. They failed. They lacked the communication networks to coordinate diplomatic efforts across such vast distances. Messages that should have taken hours took weeks. By the time responses arrived, situations had changed completely. The galactic economy had collapsed entirely. The Vryn tried to establish a new currency to replace the human-maintained trading system. Nobody trusted it. Entire sectors reverted to barter economies. Technological civilizations that had used digital banking for centuries suddenly relied on physical goods exchange. A merchant captain named Lothran found himself stuck on a frontier world with a cargo hold full of advanced medical equipment. The locals desperately needed it. but they had nothing he wanted to trade. "We can pay you," the local governor insisted. "We have credits." "Credits are worthless," Lothran replied. "They're just numbers in a computer. Without the human banking network, how do I know those credits will be accepted anywhere else?" "Then what do you want?" "Food, water, fuel, things I can actually use." The governor looked at the medical equipment. "People are dying. We need those supplies. I need to feed my crew. We all have needs." In the end, Lothran left the medical equipment and took whatever food the colony could spare. It wasn't enough. Half his crew died of starvation before they reached the next port. Stories like this repeated across council space. The invisible infrastructure that made civilization work had vanished. People who had never thought about banking systems, or supply chains, or communication. Networks suddenly faced their absence. Then, the Devourers attacked in force. They had been testing council defenses for a year. Now they knew the truth. The council was defenseless. The Devourer fleet numbered in the thousands. They swept through the border systems like a tide of destruction. Council forces tried to stop them and failed miserably. Fleet Commander Dralsith, now Supreme Commander of all Council forces, watched his fleet prepare for battle. He had assembled every available ship, 3,000 vessels, representing the combined military might of the Council. "Remember your training," he told his captains. "Maintain formation. Focus fire on priority targets. Trust your systems." But the systems couldn't be trusted. Tactical computers that had coordinated fleet movements for decades now provided conflicting information. Ships collided because navigation was imprecise. Weapons targeting was unreliable. Communication was chaotic. The battle lasted 6 hours. The Council lost 1,000 ships. The Devourers lost barely 100. Dralseth retreated with the survivors. He filed his report with shaking hands. "The Council cannot win a military engagement against any competent enemy. We are fighting with one hand tied behind our back. No, we are fighting blind and crippled. The technological advantage we relied on is gone." The Council debated building new systems, creating their own versions of what the humans had made. Research teams were assembled. Funding was allocated, but it was too late. Too much knowledge had been lost. Too many skilled workers had died in the various crises. The industrial capacity to build such systems had degraded. A young Vryn engineer named Catherine tried to recreate a simple human communication relay. She had the original blueprints. She had materials. She had a team of experienced technicians. After 3 months of work, her device managed to transmit a message across 3 light years. A human relay could transmit across 300 light years. And hers only worked twice before breaking down. "We're trying to run before we can walk," she told her supervisor. "The humans built their technology on foundations we don't have. We're missing 50 years of incremental development." "Then we'll develop it," her supervisor said. "That will take decades. Maybe longer. And we don't have decades." She was right. The cascade of failures had reached critical mass. Governments collapsed. Trade stopped. Communication fractured. The carefully built civilization of the Galactic Council was coming apart. 2 years after humanity's departure, Speaker Morvath called what would be the final full council assembly. Only half the members attended. The others couldn't make the journey or no longer had governments to represent. "We stand at the brink," Morvath said. "Our civilization is dying. Not from war, not from disaster, but from our own complacency. We built our house on foundations we didn't understand. Now those foundations are gone and the house is collapsing. Is there any hope?" someone asked. Morvath looked at the half-empty chamber. "Hope? Yes, we can survive. We can rebuild. But we must accept a hard truth: we will not rebuild the civilization we had. That's gone forever. What comes next will be smaller, harder, and built on our own efforts rather than human gifts. Can we contact them?" The Deltharian representative asked. "Is there any way to bring them back? We've sent 500 delegations into human space. Everyone returned empty-handed. They're gone. They're not coming back. And perhaps..." Morvith paused, choosing her words carefully. Perhaps that's for the best. The chamber erupted in angry protests. How can you say that? The Vryn representative shouted. Billions are dead. Entire civilizations have fallen. Yes, Morvith agreed. And whose fault is that? The humans gave us everything. They offered to teach us, to train us, to help us understand. We refused. We took their gifts and stopped learning. We became parasites feeding on their innovation. They didn't destroy us. We destroyed ourselves. The truth hung heavy in the air. No one could deny it. The final council assembly adjourned with no plans, no solutions, just a grim acknowledgement of reality. The Galactic Council as an institution was finished. Member species would have to find their own way forward. In the years that followed, civilizations across council space struggled to adapt. Some succeeded. Many failed. But slowly, painfully, they began to learn, and somewhere beyond the vast empty darkness between galaxies, humanity watched through long-range sensors. They saw the collapse. They saw the suffering. And they felt sadness, but not regret. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let someone learn to stand on their own, even if they fall first. Especially if they fall first. Vel'Koz was only 5 years old when the humans departed. Now he was 25, a historian at the reformed Korthan Academy. The empire his parents had known was gone, broken into dozens of small nations. The galaxy his textbooks described seemed like ancient history. He specialized in studying the pre-collapse period, the 50 years when humans were part of the council. Other historians avoided the topic. It was too painful, too embarrassing. But Vel'Koz believed understanding their mistakes was the only way to avoid repeating them. His current project was cataloging the abandoned human embassy on Council. Prime, the building had sat untouched for 2 decades, preserved like a monument to a fallen age. Most people avoided it. Vel'Koz walked through empty corridors, his footsteps echoing. The walls still displayed art from a dozen human cultures. A banner showed Earth as seen from space, a blue marble wrapped in white clouds. It looked peaceful, beautiful. He entered what had been the ambassador's office. Dust covered everything. He began scanning documents, photographing artwork, recording the last remnants of human presence in council space. That's when he found it, a small data storage device, hidden in a drawer of the ambassador's desk. It was marked with human writing, to be opened 20 years from departure. Not before. Vel'Koz's hands trembled as he connected the device to his scanner. A holographic projection flickered to life. A human woman appeared. She wore formal diplomatic robes and stood in this very office. Vel'Koz recognized her from Historical Records Ambassador Sarah Chun, the last human representative to the council. Hello, she began, her voice calm and warm. If you're watching this, 20 years have passed since we left. I'm sorry we couldn't say goodbye properly. But I think you understand now why we had to go. Vel'Koz sat down, transfixed. We didn't leave because we were angry, Chun continued. We left because we were killing you. Not with weapons or war, but with kindness. With generosity. With our inability to say no when you needed help. She walked to the window, looking out at Council Prime. For 50 years, we watched you stop innovating. Every time you encountered a problem, you came to us. Every time we solved it, you stopped trying to solve things yourselves. Why would you? We were faster, better, and we asked for nothing in return. Chun turned back to face the camera. We tried to warn you. We submitted hundreds of reports showing the dependency we were creating. We offered training programs that nobody attended. We provided detailed documentation that nobody read. You preferred the easy solution, just ask the humans. She pulled up holographic charts showing the decline of non-human research and development over the decades. The graphs were damning. We had a choice, Chun said. We could stay and watch you become permanently dependent. We could become the caretakers of a civilization that forgot how to take care of itself. Or we could leave and give you a chance to remember how to stand on your own. We chose to leave. It was the hardest decision we ever made. Vel'Koz felt tears on his cheeks. He hadn't expected that. I know the last 20 years have been terrible, Chun continued, her voice soft with compassion. I know billions died. I know empires fell. I know families were destroyed and dreams were shattered. Every one of those losses weighs on our hearts. But if we had stayed, we would have destroyed something more important, your potential. She sat on the edge of the desk. You needed to fall. Not because we wanted you to suffer, but because falling is how you learn to catch yourself. You needed to fail so you could learn why you failed. You needed to struggle so you could become strong enough to stand alone. That's not cruelty. That's faith. Faith that you could survive. Faith that you could adapt. Faith that you were capable of more than you believed. Shun stood again. I'm leaving you something. In this device, you'll find basic blueprints for every major system we left behind. The quantum relay network, medical nanits, jump drive calibrators, food optimization algorithms, all of it. Velko's heart raced. This was everything the council had been searching for. But, Chun added, and her voice became stern, these are not solutions. They are starting points. We've stripped away all the complexity, all the advanced features, all the shortcuts. What you're getting are the fundamental principles, the basic science, the core concepts. If you want to rebuild what you lost, you'll have to understand these principles. You'll have to do the research. You'll have to make your own mistakes and find your own solutions. You'll have to learn. She smiled sadly. We're not giving you fish. We're teaching you how to fish. Whether you eat or starve is up to you. Chun walked back to the window. You're probably wondering where we went. The truth is, we found something remarkable. We discovered a method for traveling between galaxies. And in the galaxy we reached, we found other civilizations. Advanced species who wanted to grow alongside us, not feed off us. We're building something new there. A community of equals where everyone contributes, everyone learns, and everyone grows. Species who are just beginning space travel work alongside species millions of years old. Everyone teaches. Everyone learns. No one carries anyone else forever. That's what we wanted here, Chun said quietly. Partners, not dependents, friends, not children. But you weren't ready for that. Maybe now, after everything you've been through, you will be. She turned back to the camera one last time. If you survive the next century, if you rebuild your civilization on your own terms using your own ingenuity, then perhaps we can meet again. Not as caretakers and dependents, but as equals. That's my hope. Until then, good luck. Learn well. Grow strong. And remember, the greatest gift we could give you wasn't our technology. It was the opportunity to discover your own. The hologram faded.vel single quotes cost sat in silence for a long time. Then he accessed the blueprints Chun had mentioned. He opened the file for the quantum relay network. It was nothing like what he expected. Instead of complex instructions for building the finished product, he found basic physics equations, mathematical principles, fundamental concepts about quantum entanglement and particle behavior. This wasn't a manual for copying human technology. It was a textbook, a starting point for understanding. He opened another file. Medical nanite technology. Again, not instructions for building nanites, but principles of molecular biology, material science, and computer programming at the nanoscale. Each file was the same. Raw knowledge, foundation, the building blocks from which the humans had created their marvels, but nothing more. Velkos understood. If the council wanted to rebuild, they would have to learn these principles, understand them deeply, and then create their own solutions. It might take decades, possibly generations, but it would be theirs. Built on their own understanding, not borrowed from others, he made copies of the data storage device and sent it to every research institution that still existed in council space. Then he published Ambassador Chun's message publicly. The response was mixed. Some people were angry. 20 years we've struggled, and they had the answers all along? They let us suffer when they could have helped? But others understood. A Vryn scientist named Thalex was among them. They didn't have answers. They had shortcuts. If they'd given us those shortcuts, we would have learned nothing. We'd be right back where we started in another 50 years. Research institutions across surviving council space began studying the blueprints. It was slow, painful work. Nothing came easily. The Deltharian sphere, reduced to just 3 inhabited worlds, spent 5 years just understanding the basic principles of medical nanits. Another 3 years developing their own version. It was cruder than the human design, less efficient, less elegant, but it worked. And more importantly, they understood how it worked. The reformed Korthan Academy developed a new communication system using the quantum principles Chun had provided. It could barely transmit across 10 light years. The human network had covered thousands, but it was a start. And they could improve it because they understood it. Across former council space, the same pattern repeated. Slow progress, frequent failures, hard-won victories. But progress nonetheless. A generation later, a young Vryn engineer looked at the communication relay her team had just built. It could transmit across 100 light years, 10 times better than their first attempt. Still nothing compared to what the humans had built, but honest work. Earned through understanding, not borrowed. My grandmother saw the humans leave, she told her team. She said it was the worst day of her life. But you know what? If they hadn't left, I would never have learned to do this. None of us would have. We would still be pressing buttons we didn't understand, using tools we couldn't fix. Her team nodded in agreement. 50 years after humanity's departure, the council reformed. Not as it was before, but as something new, smaller, humbler, but self-sufficient. The new council's first official act was to send a message toward the area of space where the human wormhole had been. They knew the humans probably wouldn't receive it. The distance was too vast, but they sent it anyway. The message was simple: thank you. We understand now. We're standing on our own. If you ever want to come back, not as caretakers but as friends, we're ready. No response came. But that was okay. The council no longer needed rescuing. And somewhere in a distant galaxy, on a world orbiting a star whose light had not yet reached council space, an old woman read the message and smiled. Ambassador Sarah Chun had lived to see her faith rewarded. The council had survived. They had learned. They had grown. She authorized a response. We see you. We're proud of you. Keep growing. Keep learning. One day, when you're ready, we'll meet again. As equals, as friends. Until then, the galaxy is yours. Make us proud. The message would take decades to reach the council, but Ching knew it would arrive eventually. And when it did, it would find a civilization worthy of reading it. The humans had left quietly, forcing the council to face consequences. Those consequences had been harsh. But from the ashes of the old council, something better had emerged. Something earned. Something real. Something that would last.